in one of the Rebbe's letters in the area of guidance and shidduchim that were recently published, the Rebbe writes a letter to a young woman who was already engaged, and her dilemma was that she's not so happy with the character and the personality of her chassan. He's a frume yid, and he's a good person, but she doesn't like his character so much, and she's having second thoughts about their engagement. And the Rebbe writes the following to address this issue. Ula'achrei kol zeh, hinei aleha lehizboinin heitev b'ha'inyan. The young woman should contemplate very well. Ki harei b'chol adam v'adam, by every person, hapnimiyas ha'ikar shaloi v'hachitzoniyas tafel. The internal faculties of a person is the main part of the person. That's who the person really is. And the external faculties of the person is secondary. And when two people get to know each other, a future chassan and a future kala get to know each other before the chassan, what's more visible, what you can see more, is the external faculties. You don't really see the internal faculties of a person, even though that's the main part of the person. And slowly but surely, the pnimiyah starts to come out. And especially after the chasana, it becomes totally the opposite. That the pnimius comes out much more after the chasana, and the chitzonius is much less given attention to. And therefore this young woman needs to keep account of, and needs to keep in her calculation, that whichever suggestion will ever be brought up to her, she has to keep in mind something which is a good quality in internal qualities is much stronger than a deficiency in external qualities. Being that when it comes to day-to-day life, and when it comes to living in the same house as another person, what's most important, what's most negea, what's going to come to real action is going to be their internal qualities, their level of Yiddishkeit and their level of menschlichkeit. That's what's going to be the main thing which is going to be important in day-to-day life. Not whether they're a chevraman, not whether they have the right character or personality that I'm looking for. Another point. Something which is lacking, something which is a deficiency in external faculties, it's possible to compensate for it in some way or another. And it's much easier to compensate for a deficiency in external faculties than to compensate for something internal that a person is lacking in. And being that in her situation, it's visible from her letter, her lack of satisfaction of her chassan, it's not from his internal faculties. That's not what she's upset about. It doesn't look like he's such a person who's a chevraman. It doesn't look like he has so much energy. That's what her dissatisfaction stems from. And it's not from his internal faculties. His internal faculties are all okay. And says the Rebbe, that's what's going to be negea later on in life. Uveschashev, concludes the Rebbe, and keeping in mind that gam b'noyeg sheba'olam, that when it comes to the world, she'ein adam shalem, that there's no one who's complete. And everyone has some deficiency in life, either an internal one or an external one. And therefore, being that in her situation, her chassan has only an external issue, that he doesn't seem to be such a chevredik personality. Therefore, her leaning has to be more to yes than to otherwise. Being that her chassan really internally, he's really fine, there's just something external, and that could actually be compensated for and fixed and filled in later. It could possibly be fixed later. And the Rebbe finishes off that she should again ask advice of those who are close to her and those who know her, and she'll definitely make a proper decision. And this is beautiful advice, and it's sound advice for those who are even before the level of engagement. That when it comes to personality and character, if that's just an external thing, then it's something which is good to overlook. Because what's going to be negeya in a house, what's going to be important to actual living is not whether the person's a chaverman or not. It's whether they are devoted to Yiddishkeit. It's whether they're a mensch and they have good midas. That's the main thing in life. And becoming a chaverman, many people could go out of their box, could go out of their shell and become a chaverman a little bit later, a little bit more and more. They could work on themselves, but that's all external. And this is neged to so many different areas where people say no, and the problem is something external, something which is incidental. As long as the individual themselves is devoted and has good midas and has good internal faculties, then it's something that should definitely be pursued.